Welcome to This May Get Raw, Building Wise Resilience, a podcast by survivors for survivors. I'm Lisa.
And I'm Sarah. As domestic abuse survivors, we know what it's like to rebuild after the unthinkable. We're here to walk alongside you, from surviving to thriving. Each week, we'll invite you into honest conversations about the hard stuff and the powerful stuff. The shame, the fear, reclaiming your identity, and stepping into the life you deserve.
This may get raw, but that's where transformation happens. Let's get started. Hey, Sarah.
Hey, Lisa. Welcome back. This May Get Raw, and you might notice I have a special mug today. I have an egregiously large mug collection, but I refuse to apologize for it and just keep buying more. This one, the one I picked specifically for today, is a quote from Phoebe Buffay from Friends. It says, "I wish I could, but I don't want to." And that pretty much perfectly captures what we're doing today, because we are talking about boundaries.
Such an important topic.
Mm-hmm. And such a hard topic. I mean, boundaries are hard for a lot of people, but especially survivors, when, we're coming from a situation where we weren't allowed to have them before. So relearning what they are, at their essence, but also, why, how to set them and how to keep them, and why having them isn't selfish. It's part of our self-protection. It's part of our rights as humans. So if you're thinking about boundaries, imagine from a survivor's perspective, especially, imagine you've gone your entire life living in a house with no doors, and people are walking in and out whenever they want and taking your stuff and moving your stuff and telling you where to put your stuff, and just kind of like kicking their feet up on your couch with their dirty shoes. And you hate it, but you haven't ever experienced anything different. So you just kind of are like, well, this is just what houses are and how life works. And then someday someone comes over to your house and tells you, you can put doors up with locks and you can close them and you can have privacy, and then you can open them up and invite people in. Yeah. And your mind is just blown, because like, wait, what? I can have doors with locks? But as exciting as the information is, knowing that houses with doors exist doesn't mean you grasp how to install a door, or how to use a lock, or when to shut the door or lock the door, or how to deal with the people who are banging on the door outside because they've gotten so used to just walking in and out whenever they wanted. So that's that process of learning, A, that doors exist, and B, how to use them and when to use them. That's what building boundaries feels like for a lot of survivors. We've never had a house with doors, or we went many years without having a house with doors. And, we had people in our lives who benefited from us having no doors, and them being able to come in and take whatever they wanted and use whatever they wanted whenever they wanted. So now we have these people in our lives who are angry that all of a sudden they are being met with a door instead of just being able to walk in whenever they want. So that's kind of what the process of boundaries and the concept of boundaries feels like for a lot of survivors, is learning how to rebuild that house that's more secure and gives us privacy and safety and freedom.
Yeah. I think so many times as survivors, there's just these mind-blown moments, and this would be another one where people will respect my boundaries, and that's part of the loving relationship. So by the end of this episode, we're hoping that our audience will understand that boundaries aren't mean, they're necessary. We hope that you'll learn some practical ways to identify boundaries that you need and to be able to communicate them. And we hope, above all, that you'll give yourself permission to protect your space, your energy, your peace, even when others don't understand or approve. We're going to acknowledge up front that this is a meaty episode. There's lots and lots of things to talk about. We are going to be taking one specific view, and there's a lot. So we will maybe do future episodes on this, but if some of this seems rushed or fast, it's because there's a lot of material that we want to cover, because we understand that this, again, is fluid, everybody's different on the spectrum, and that we want to give as much information as possible so that people don't feel alone and they can identify like, oh, that one hit home.
Right.
So, so that's our hope.
Yeah, it's kind of a jumping off point for the boundaries conversation. Like, hopefully We want everyone to walk away with at least an idea maybe where to start when it comes to boundaries.
Yeah.
And Lisa, you hit on this. I do just want to reiterate too. This goes to all of the conversations that we have, but this one in particular, I feel like is really important to acknowledge, is that we are coming at this conversation as two white women. Societally speaking,
Yep.
setting boundaries for us, while it's not easy, is easier than it is for other communities.
Yes.
So there is a lot. All of these topics have a component of intersectionality that we acknowledge and we respect and we want to honor and do our best to include. But we are coming at this from our lived experience, which is as white women. So there are naturally going to be things that we just, A, because we don't want to talk for 4 hours, we're not going to hit on today, but B, from our lived experience, just it hasn't included. So I do just want to acknowledge that up front as well.
So let's jump into like why we're talking about the topic, right? Like why it's important as survivors. And I think a definition is a good place. Like the physical, emotional, mental, spiritual limits you establish to protect your well-being and define what you will and won't accept in your relationships and lives. They're not walls to be kept up. And I think in our society in general, that is how they are seen and perceived. I think that's why it's so hard, even in a loving relationship, to say, "Ooh, I don't like that," or "I don't want that," because it's seemed as bad. So they're not walls meant to keep everyone out. Like you said in the opening, it's doors that you can open and close based on your safety, your trust, your capacity. They're how you communicate your needs, your limits, and your values. And they are essential for healthy relationship and recovery from abuse in any relationship, intimate, professional, whatever. And the added component, because as survivors, we have lots of added components. Boundaries weren't accepted, but they were also punished.
Right.
Yep. We learned very early on that our needs, our preferences, limits, not only were not accepted, but we were seen as difficult, ungrateful, selfish. Yeah, just having them. And our jobs were to accommodate, adjust, and to make ourselves smaller so someone could be comfortable. Their boundaries 100% needed to be met. It was that double standard, right? It was that part of that crazy making, like, but I'm, okay.
Yeah, and so often their boundaries are upheld as rational or logical or natural, just the way the world works, whereas our boundaries were framed as crazy, emotional, hysterical, illogical.
Right. My background is that religious component. So as a wife, I wasn't being submissive. Mm-hmm. I wasn't being a godly woman. Yeah. So that was like a double, like, ooh, that's not what I want.
Yeah.
Right? He's the man of the household, so he understands these things in ways that I don't, and I'm supposed to just trust him. So, again, the absence of boundaries don't just affect that relationship, but it affects our sense of self. Mm-hmm. When you don't know where you end and others begin, you lose track of who you actually are. Mm-hmm. You become skilled at reading everyone else's needs, but you can't identify. And I think in other episodes, I don't know at this point if they'll be published or not because we're batch contenting. When we talked about self-care, it's like, I don't know what I like. I don't know what I want because the lines were so blurred.
Yeah.
So blurred.
Yeah, at a certain point, you're not allowed to have preferences, to have those boundaries, those limits, those lines in the sand of what you will and will not accept in your life. And the longer it goes where you're not allowed, and it erodes that sense of self, eventually you start to believe that you don't deserve them. You don't have a right to them.
Right.
Which, in my opinion, boundaries should be on the list of human rights. Like, we should all have the right to feel safe, to feel secure, to have privacy, to be able to say, no, that's something I will not accept in my life and in my relationships. But as a survivor, after a while, you start to just believe that you don't they're right. Your boundaries are crazy, so you don't have the right to have them.
I think of parenting when my kids are in their 20s, but when I was parenting, when they were younger, it was, oh, give grandma a hug because you haven't seen her in a really long time. Like, you need to give her a hug, and you need to give her a hug. Like, that's not very kind, yada, yada, yada. Now, as I'm watching my family raise nieces and nephew, it is, oh, maybe a high five, but that's okay if you don't even want to give the high five. Like, you're entitled to that. Just the acknowledgement. So when you were saying, like, that human right, like, we teach that very young. And I feel like we can do a better job of enforcing it so we don't get ourselves in situations.
That's something we're very cognizant of with my niece and nephew. They're almost 4. You don't have to hug everyone when they come in the house. You don't have to give them high fives if you want to. You do have to acknowledge them in some capacity. Say hello, right? Don't just ignore the fact that another human walked into the space. But we're not forcing them to hug people if they don't want to or aren't in the mood. Like, children are human beings too.
Right. And I hope that sticks, right? I hope teaching them at younger ages. But I love the swing of the spectrum of, like, we are now understanding that needs to be taught young so that as they get older, they can have that confidence in themselves. Right.
That bodily autonomy to say, no, I don't feel like giving either. I just don't feel like giving that person a hug, or that person doesn't feel safe to hug. Right. That's a boundary that you have to learn. You have to learn how to identify. And if we're not teaching, people young, it's much harder to learn that when you're 42 than it is when you're 3.
Right. And I even think of just, and we're going to touch on this later, even saying no as a complete sentence. Like, I don't have to justify. It's just no. Right. I don't want to get together with you for coffee. No.
It's so hard.
Like, I don't owe you anything. So I'm jumping ahead, but this is kind of, boundaries are how we reclaim our power for ourselves. It's how we learn what's ours to carry and what's not. I have a little sticky note on multiple computers because I'm a contractor, I have multiple computers, and it says, "Is this your burden to carry?
Ooh, I love
like,
that.
Is this mine to take on?" I still need to do that. They're how you discover how to take up space, have preferences, protect your peace. And I would say that recovery is nearly impossible if you keep giving your energy away, if you keep giving your space away. You need opportunity to heal.
Yeah.
But some of the things you've already touched on with, like, those misunderstandings, right? Like, boundaries aren't punishments. If you and I are in conversation and you say, "Lisa, I have to go. I don't want to talk about this anymore." That's not personal to me. I honor that and go, "Oh, thank you for telling me." Right? Like, that is I'm not being punished because you're done talking to me. It's a connection point. To your point, you don't need permission to have boundaries. It's a human right. You get to take up space. You get to say,
I'm not comfortable with that. And
and you don't have to communicate that. Boundaries aren't about changing others, which is also very, very tricky. Very tricky.
There's a lot of nuance there,
You can't boundary someone into being different. We get to control ourselves. That's it.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty damn big job. That's a big fucking job.
Yeah.
Boundaries are what you will accept and what you won't accept. What you will participate in and what you won't participate in. They're about your behaviors and not theirs. And then that the other one, no is a complete sentence. I have tried to practice this one. It doesn't feel good in my body to this day.
Just say no with no kind of justification.
Just no to say.
Same.
As I was looking at this over this week, I was like, can I incorporate this into my life? Like, is there a way that I can push myself? I was not able to do it. But I acknowledge that even
thinking about it.
Yeah, even saying no right here. I feel it right here. Like,
but even if you weren't able to actually do it in practice, I want to stop and celebrate. Like, even thinking about it and trying to is starting to flex that muscle a little bit and start to grow that capacity, rather than just immediately
appreciate that.
freaking out and being like, no, I could never ever do that. Right? You're opening that
Yes.
door in your mind a little bit to say, "Ooh, I don't really want to do that, but maybe I'll get there someday." Like that's progress.
Yeah. And I want to because I do see it as an important
Yeah.
skill. And then boundaries are going to be tested. Especially as you alluded to, for people who benefited coming in your door and coming in your room and coming into your space, they for sure aren't going to appreciate
Yep.
you putting up boundaries. Doesn't mean you're wrong. Again, that's about the other person, not you.
Yep.
And then it is a skill. Like, it's not an instinct for me, especially as a people pleaser, especially in recovery. It is not, it does not, it doesn't, it's not my instinct.
Right. Yeah.
You still have instincts of no, but I can't always communicate it. So that's nuanced.
Yeah.
But
The no,
setting the boundaries.
right. Knowing, even if you don't know them consciously yet, knowing in your body where your boundaries are is instinctual. But if you've never been allowed to communicate them, or if it's been a long time since you've communicated them, or if at any point, even if it wasn't a long time, if communicating your boundaries wasn't safe, you're gonna lose that ability to put into practice. Like, you do have to make it an active practice again, to take that instinct out of your body and into the rest of your life. And that's normal. That's normal for a lot of people, not just survivors, I would argue.
Yeah, I would also put in here that setting a boundary isn't necessarily even with another person. I've had to learn early on. I just started with phone calls. Oh, this person is calling. I'm not going to pick up the phone. Mm-hmm. That's a boundary. They don't even know that I'm not picking up the phone, right?
Right.
Or I realize when I spend time with this person, they drain my energy. So I'm going to limit my contact with them.
Yeah.
They don't know that.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
you're not
again,
calling
it
them up on
doesn't
the
have
phone
to
and
be.
telling them. Yeah, but it's like, you are
I have
really
a
exhausted.
door.
I can't see you as often anymore.
Right, I have a door. Now you can't come in and out. Like, there's a door.
But you're setting that boundary with yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, like, setting boundaries is a skill within ourselves and with others.
Yeah. And that goes back to the point that boundaries are about controlling our lives, not controlling others. They're about controlling our behaviors and what we're accepting. So yeah, a lot of the time it does start with controlling our own behavior and deciding what steps we are or not going to take to protect our well-being and our safety. So when it comes to boundaries and abusive relationships, they're yet another thing that abusers weaponize, because they are very good at that. They, just like many abusers, have this radar for people pleasers, and very empathetic people who are going to be easy to manipulate. They have a radar for people who lack strong boundaries, and they or have I don't even want to say it, have the potential to lack strong boundaries because they're a people pleaser. You might start off a relationship with someone and you have strong boundaries, but because you love this person, you want to please them, and they take advantage of that. Eventually that dismantles your boundaries and wears it down until they've all been violated and you don't get to have them anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have an example of this one.
Oh, yeah, sure.
So, I don't have a big appetite. So when I go out to eat, it's a big deal because I can usually get 2 to 3 meals out of. And I love that because I get to relive the experience. It's never the same. So early on in my relationship with X, I would always bring stuff home if he took me to dinner. Mm-hmm. And this was even this started in our dating relationship. So I would bring food home, and he would come over and he'd just say, "Oh, can I have that?" And I'm like, "Oh, when we were at dinner, I told you, like, I was really excited to eat that." And that's how it started. Mm. And it ended up 25 years later where he would intentionally eat my food, and he would say, he wouldn't even tell me he ate it, but when we were going to dinner, I would just know that I wasn't going to have leftovers.
Yeah.
But again, it was under that guise of like, well, what's mine is yours, what's yours is mine. To be a good, godly wife, you share, you're generous. But I would just go to the fridge and they'd be gone. And then I'd say, what happened? And they're like, well, I ate that because I was hungry. Like, no apology. But it's just interesting now to kind of do that. And then I'll take it a step further. When I was dating my current, my partner now, one of the first it was the third date, we went on a hike and we were driving about 40 minutes to get dinner. And I was super hungry. And I admitted that I was starting to get hangry. And I was just sitting there and I was like, I'm not sharing my leftovers. We were having pizza. And he was like,
Okay.
And then I thought, even if you pay for them. Like, I was like, wait, if he pays for it, then it's technically his pizza. But I was already worried that was going to be broached, that boundary was not going to be respected. So I know that was a long story, but it just kind of weaves, it's just something so minor.
Right. And that actually shows how they start with these boundary violations, because they start with something so small that you even if it does bother you, you're like, that shouldn't bother me, that's so dumb. Like, okay, like this cute guy I like is hungry, and so he asked if he could have my leftovers. Like, why would I feel upset about that?
Right.
That's how it starts. They get that foot in that door, and next thing you know, you are freaking out about potentially sharing your leftovers 20 years later with your new partner. It starts small. Like all of the abuse we're talking about. No one walks up to you and punches you on your first date and you end up in a relationship with them.
Right.
Like this, it all starts like imperceptibly small.
Well, and if you think about it, after
it's like boiling the frog.
Right, because you don't think about that again until, like, you just go on with your business. Mm-hmm. It's not like you ruminate on it. Right. So then the next time it happens, you're like, oh, well, yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it's so little, to your point, that you don't spend. It passes.
Yep.
Because there's other things going on.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So another way boundaries tend to be weaponized, and I experienced this one, like, so often in my relationship, was reframing the boundary violation as, quote unquote, helping you. So I have clinical depression, clinical anxiety. My abuser would always use that against me as just kind of, not even verbally, sometimes verbally, but early on, not even verbally, just kind of implied that I was broken in some way. Right. And he was this great guy who was coming in and saving me and loving me, even though I was so broken.
Oh, okay.
So he would claim, when he would push my boundaries and violate my boundaries, that was him trying to help me, quote unquote, get over my anxieties. So my own mental health was being weaponized against me. And he was painting himself in this light as the savior who was just trying to fix this broken person and help her get over this whatever aspect of herself.
Yeah.
So it turned it, and that itself is a mindfuck, right? Because as an anxious person, I don't want to be anxious. I would love to get over my anxiety. Right. And I do know for myself that sometimes, yes, pushing myself to do something I'm anxious about eventually helps. But he would frame it as, well, that's what's going to get you past this, is just if we just push your boundaries. But you are allowed to push your own boundaries in search of growth.
Right.
You don't grow from someone else violating your boundaries.
Right. Yeah, it sounds like he was coming from a place of all-knowing and a greater being, so he understood your illness more than you did, and therefore he's going to help you out.
Exactly.
Like, you should just let him. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, which is
crazy
so
making.
Fucked up.
Yeah.
And crazy making. I think that is a beautiful thing that I've learned to develop in relationships, and even in our relationship, is when I talk with fellow survivors, I'll say, if something comes up for you, how can I support you in that? Like, do you and just leaving it at that and allowing the person to work through it. And it may be, and we've had this conversation, it may be, you know what, can we just talk about this later? I'll give you a call in 24 hours, or I'll leave you a Marco Polo. Or it's, no, I'm okay. I want to keep going. But it's 1000% respecting your autonomy and that you know what's best for you.
Right.
And I think that is a beautiful way the survivor community can work, is understanding and holding that space and going, oh yeah, this isn't about me. This is about what's best for you and your nervous system.
Right. And you know that. You're the only person.
You know that. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yep.
I know your example just sounds like a perfect narcissistic. Anyway.
Sometimes.
Fucker.
You know what's great though? I am so much less anxious now. I'm like, whoa, maybe it wasn't ever anxiety. It was just you. I'm good now.
Interesting. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I think when I experienced also was isolation through boundary violation, like cutting me off from family and friends that they couldn't control. Like, oh, they don't love you. You're the black sheep of the family, or, yeah, I don't think you should see that friend. They talked about you when you left the room, or, it's not about protecting you from people that are hurting you. It's about removing the people who may help you recognize what's happening. Yeah. And again, healthy relationships respect boundaries. And abusers can't afford to let them have a comparison, right? Like, I have this relationship with my coworker and they seem to be just fine with stuff I'm doing. And
with me saying no. Yeah. Yeah. Another one that came up for me, I was reminded of recently, I forget, I saw it on social media or someone had mentioned it and I was like, oh yeah, I do remember that. It was like maybe a year ago. And it was in the news that a bunch of text messages that the actor Jonah Hill had sent to his, I don't remember if they were currently dating, either his ex-girlfriend or his then girlfriend. And it was basically him, quote unquote, setting boundaries, but it was really him trying to tell her what to do, like what she could and could not post on her social media, who she could and could not talk to. And he expressed it as, these are my boundaries for this relationship. So it was kind of like that. It was setting his own boundaries to control someone. Again, boundaries are not about controlling another person. But it also really highlighted for me the way that a lot of abusers weaponize psychology and therapy speak. Like they learn the verbiage and then they twist it to work against you. So suddenly someone controlling you, they're not controlling you, they're just setting their boundaries. And well, we're supposed to respect boundaries, right? So obviously I should feel like I should have to respect that, even though it doesn't feel right in my body because it's actually them just trying to control me.
So the next section we wanted to cover was like how abusers react to new boundaries. And all of these things are true. We have a few things that, how they react, but I want to acknowledge that I left my abuser and then tried to go non-contact. And so I haven't dealt with this person in 8 years. I have not seen their face in person. I have not had a phone call. I've had no contact. There have been attempts. So I just want to acknowledge that coming into this conversation, that if you are co-parenting, if this is a family member, like if this, and yeah. So I just want to acknowledge that this is a little bit more complicated for people that are still having to have relationship and have the boundaries in them. Yeah.
Yeah. Infinitely more complicated. And my hat's off to you if that is your situation, because like you, I am no contact with my abuser, have been for a long time. Thankfully don't have any reason that is forcing me to be in contact with that person. Rediscovering your boundaries in your own life and holding them with other people is hard enough as a survivor. I can't imagine the strength that it takes to to do that with your abuser. So that's a really good point to make before we go into this.
Yeah. And I think as we talk about these, just like how they're going to respond, we've still been on the receiving end of them, but they don't feel as visceral at this point.
Yeah, they're not chasing us.
Considerable space. They're not chasing us. Yeah. So like dismissal, like you're being ridiculous. That's not necessary.
Crazy. You're being emotional.
You're being crazy. Mm-hmm. When that doesn't work, they escalate, right? The rage, the threats, dramatic emotional displays,
the silent treatment
designed to scare you back in. Yeah. And I think is important to state, when a person leaves an intimate relationship, the average is 7 times trying to leave, right?
Yep.
I think mine was 4 or 5. But now that I'm looking at these, I'm just like, oh yeah, when I first left the first time, that's when he escalated and there was rage. I was like, oh shit, I have no choice. I have to go back.
Yeah.
So it's almost like I had to get thicker skin developing how to handle each phase of it.
Yeah.
It got to a point where when I finally left, I was like, I can't, the clock is now. And if I engage, then the clock starts all over again.
Yep.
And it's like give a mouse a cookie. If you do a little bit, they're going to take more. The manipulation, right? Then the guilt, the victim playing. Again, these are not in order. These are not checklists. But this happens, then hits happens. But I can't believe you do this to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I look like an idiot. You didn't come to family dinner. After everything I've done for you, like, I've tried to save you, Sarah, of all your problems, right? Like, how could you?
Yep. Yeah. And then testing. So repeatedly violating your boundaries just to see what your reaction will be if you'll enforce it. Yeah, a big one for me was when we had an argument. I need space to calm down after an argument.
Yep.
You know, I need to be by myself for a while. I need to not be around the person. Even just like 15 minutes, just kind of calm myself down, get in a better headspace, and not say things I'm going to regret, right? I was not allowed to have that. He would block the door and not let me leave. And so obviously then the arguments would just continue escalating, which is what he was going for, because then eventually I would fly off the handle and look like the crazy abusive one. Which was
exact same situation. Yes, exactly the same situation. Yeah. And then the smear campaigns, right? If you do hold to that boundary after all of this, they'll tell people you're unreasonable. A big one for me was vindictive. I was being vindictive, so that he would tell the kids, Mom is really being vindictive. Like, this is really wrong. And that to me was just a real vicious.
I mean,
vindictive is just it's a kind of like I don't think of evil, but I think of just a really bad person. And so it just wasn't, Yeah. And then it became recruiting family members, right? So I wouldn't talk with him, so he'd get his sister, hey, reach out. I don't know what's happened. She's acting crazy.
Right.
So the smear campaigns.
Right. So then you have other people pushing you to drop that boundary. So you're getting even more pressure, which when you're already in the headspace of not believing that you deserve boundaries in the first place, hearing it from multiple people that a boundary you're setting is unreasonable, of course you're going to drop it.
Right. They know exactly what they're doing. You know what's interesting? I'm looking at these and I'm thinking, wow, they're kind of like childlike behaviors. Like, put on your shoes. I don't want to. I don't. And then they get upset and they have a little fit.
Yep.
Ah! And then they're like, oh, but do I have to? I don't want to. And then the testing. What if I don't put on my shoes? What if I don't go to bed? What's going to happen?
What are you going to do?
And then I have had littles in my life that are like, I hate you. You're making me eat my green beans. You're the worst, So I'm just looking.
You're not being nice. That's my nephew's one. You're not being very nice.
But I'm just looking at all these going, wow, the irony.
Yeah. It's interesting living with preschoolers now. This is something my housemates and I talk about all the time because it is very frustrating when they are testing your boundaries. But for 4-year-olds, that's healthy. That shows that they feel safe with us. Like, we actually want kids to test boundaries. When we're talking about grown-ass people who know what they're doing and know that they're hurting you, totally different story.
So how this shows up in abuse recovery, like even after you leave, it doesn't disappear, right? So
it doesn't just disappear, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It'd be so nice if it did, but
yes.
We still feel the guilt. So every time we set a boundary, even if it's a completely valid, I mean, I would argue all of our boundaries are completely valid ones because we're setting them, even if they're ones that we only need for a season of life, we're setting them for a reason. So, but every time we set a boundary, we feel that guilt, that panic, that like weight in your chest at the idea of saying the word no to someone. That comes from those experiences of abuse when setting boundaries was not safe.
I think fear of consequences too, right? Like even in a safe relationship, I'm not sure how this person's going to respond. Maybe why
our nervous system remembers.
Maybe that's why I told them I wasn't going to share my pizza. Like, back off, buddy.
You were very upfront about it, which I love.
And I mean, I appreciate how, like, that's how when you're in a new relationship, that's how you get to know the other person, right? Like, because that would have been very valid for him to go, whoa, okay.
Right? You really are angry,
this is,
okay. So another one that comes up a lot for survivors who are in recovery is swinging the pendulum completely to the other side, from no boundaries to very rigid boundaries, not being able to trust anyone, not being able to be vulnerable in any kind of situation. And it's a self-protection mechanism, and it makes perfect sense as to why we would feel that way and want to do that. Ultimately, all it does is isolate us and keep us from healing and keep us from developing healthy connections. I talked in the last episode about, early in my recovery, I was verging on agoraphobic, and it stemmed from that. It was a physical boundary I was setting for myself that was very rigid, that was designed to keep me safe. And again, it was understandable, but you have to, and this is where I'll stress again, professional help is irreplaceable in working through that portion of the journey, and being able to open up and let those boundaries down a little bit and start to trust people again.
Yeah. And I want to reiterate, but it did serve a purpose for a period of time, right? You needed to feel safe within yourself before you were willing to breach that physical. And same with other people. Like, it's okay to have very rigid because you don't know who to trust. You don't know where to go. It's if you stay there that it develops into unhealthiness. So just to touch upon some like red flags, right, that your boundaries are being violated. It kind of but just that speaking to that like erosion, like it doesn't just come right out of the gate. Like if someone repeatedly forgets or ignores your stated limits, right? Like, or you feel justified or pressured to justify or defend your boundaries. Like a no is a complete sentence. If I love you and I'm in healthy relationship and you tell me you don't want to do something, you don't owe me any explanations. You do not have to feel pressured.
No is not a opening for negotiation.
You feel guilty, anxious, or afraid after stating a boundary or even thinking about stating a boundary, right? Like that's how it becomes, is like, ooh, conflict, to I don't want conflict. Conflict is dangerous. I don't want to escalate. I will make myself small and forget I have any needs whatsoever. Yeah.
And then, I mean, some of the more obvious ones, if you set a boundary and someone calls you a name for it, tells you you're being selfish or difficult or too sensitive or you're overreacting, that's just a general red flag in life.
Yeah.
Or someone bringing up boundaries that you have or have not set in your past as a way to talk you out of a boundary, saying you used to be okay with that.
Yeah.
things change and we learn and we grow. You're allowed to grow. You're allowed to change as a human. That was another one I heard a lot throughout my relationship. Was you changed and said
Negative.
in a derogatory way whenever, and it was coincidentally whenever I was doing something for myself or engaging in any kind of personal growth, personal development that challenged the status quo. It was, well, you changed, said very accusingly. So whenever anyone brings up a response to a new boundary that you've set by saying it didn't used to be this way, as an argument as to why you shouldn't set that boundary, that's a red flag.
I think I remember the first time I was after I left the relationship, and someone, I think it was a yoga class, and they just talked about agency. And they said, you have agency over your body. If a position does not feel good, you don't have to do it. You can just be in child's pose the entire time, or just, was it vinyasa? Just when you're just like at the end, like where you're just like,
Savasana.
Not even gonna try. But like, I was like, that person doesn't even know me. I think it was online, and I don't even have my camera on. And I was like, I do have agency. Like, that was a brand new topic for me to even understand. Like, it was normal to have choice and to change. Because I want to change. I want to be a better human. I want to learn things. Of course I'm going to change. I'm so sorry that was weaponized against you. That I can just, knowing you as a person, and just how you love self-growth and like, right? Like, it just lights you up. So to have that weaponized is just, bleh.
Yeah, it was icky, to say the least.
Yeah.
So in every episode, we like to talk about, how our topic of the day fits into our RAW framework, which is resilience, awareness, and wisdom. So when we're talking about boundaries, they're really the key, or one of the major keys to building resilience. Every time you set a boundary and keep it and honor it for yourself, you're gathering data and evidence that you can trust yourself, that you can protect yourself, that you are resilient, and learning the difference between knowing what you have to have resilience around, like things that you have to bounce back from, and the things that you don't even need to engage with, that like they're not yours to carry. You should not ever have to bounce back from them because you shouldn't have been engaging with them in the first place. So being able to discern that, it helps you use your resilience more wisely, because you're not just expending it on everything, if that makes sense.
Yeah. You're not being everything to everyone. And under awareness, you can't set boundaries you can't identify. So awareness is about tuning into the signals of your body and emotions. And some of these we've talked about. It's like that that feeling in my chest when I say no. And then I'm like, I don't have to say more, but I want to. The exhaustion around certain interactions. The relief you feel in someone's absence. It's just little tiny, and again, you build on it. It's not like you leave an abusive situation and then you're like, whoa, it just builds.
You start to learn to recognize those patterns after a while, once you start paying attention and becoming more aware.
This is a big one, is the emotional awareness, right? Like the anxiety that comes from being in relationships where you can't be authentic. I continue to learn that as I age. Like there are no one really talks about you outgrow relationships, right? Or it's for a season of life.
You do.
And so there are people that come into my life now and I'm like, oh, that's okay, right? Like I
good.
I have a friend that said something lovely the other day. She goes, oh, they're not my people. Because we were talking about someone and I said, oh, and then I said, tell me more. And they were able to give a very healthy, it wasn't gossipy, but it was like, oh, these are some things I've noticed. And I was like, oh, I got that vibe, but you've gone down the road further. So that's good. And I was, I was totally okay to walk away, and I just enjoy the peace that comes from authentic connection.
I was going to say that's the flip side of that coin. The anxiety you feel around inauthentic relationships that don't feel honest and safe. And then the peace that comes when those people aren't around.
Yes.
Like when one of the there were many red flags, but one that really stands out in my mind as one of my like very last oh shit moments before I actually did leave the final time I left was my abuser was traveling. He was on a business trip. And I was so excited and so relieved when he left. Like as soon as the door hit his ass on the way out, I was just like, brand new woman over here. I can't wait to do all the things. And I remember sitting there after I had a great first day, went out to, I forget what I did, but I did all these things I was so excited about doing. And I was sitting there in the evening, reading my book with my tea and writing my journal. And I just remember thinking, I probably shouldn't be this blissfully happy every time my partner leaves the house.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's probably something there I should investigate.
But it feels so good.
It feels so good. Yeah, you're that peace you feel when you are A, around your people, and B, when people who aren't your people are no longer in your sphere.
So we talked about physical awareness, emotional awareness, and pattern awareness. So like, again, noticing that certain people cause the drained feeling. Recognizing that you're repeating dynamics from the abusive relationship in new contexts. Seeing that you accommodate certain people in ways you don't with others. That's also a big one. Like, oh, I don't jump through this many hoops to be in relationship with that authentic person that I've just, right? Like, so awareness is understanding and recognizing the difference between boundaries and control. Boundaries are about managing your own behavior and choice. Control is about managing someone else's. So I won't stay in conversations where I'm going to be yelled at is a boundary. You're not allowed to be angry is control.
Right.
Yeah.
And that could be nuanced too, because, at the surface saying you're not allowed to yell at me seems like a valid boundary, but that's still about controlling their behavior. The boundary is if you yell at me, I'm going to leave the room so we can both calm down. That's a boundary because it's about what your behavior is. It's not trying to control their behavior. So it can feel a little nuanced sometimes.
This is why I love the coaching space, because in therapy, you learn what boundaries are and why it's important. But then in coaching and in community, you get to actually hash that out. Like I actually have to talk to someone about how they do this every time I'm with them. Right. How does that play out? Yeah. What does that look like? So it's that integration piece. And that's what I'm hoping with this podcast is we're showing people how to integrate the learnings and what it actually practically looks like and can look like even further down the line on your healing journey.
Yeah. What does recovery look like in real life?
Yeah.
So the wisdom piece, knowing that not all boundaries are created equal. Sometimes it makes sense to have more flexible boundaries. Sometimes when things are more important or the relationship is more important or relationship is more fraught with things, more rigid boundaries are called for. So it's not a one size fits all, and your boundaries get to be yours. They're not determined by what anyone else thinks they should be or what works for someone else. You get to decide what your boundary is in any given relationship and situation.
So I think just the raw truth, boundaries need all three elements. Resilience gives you the strength to maintain them when they're challenged. Awareness helps you identify what boundaries you need in the first place. And wisdom guides you in knowing when to hold firm and when to adjust, like that flexibility. Who deserves access and who doesn't, and how to communicate those boundaries effectively. As usual, we are close to the end, but we are getting to a very important part. So this is our invitation for survivors, where we talk about practical ways in which you can identify, and all the things we've talked about in the episode, we then invite you to practice one of these things if it feels comfortable to you. So there is a framework, and it's called the Boundary Framework. And it's designed to help you identify, set, and maintain boundaries. even when you've never been allowed to have them before. So we're going to break these down, but right off the bat, B is beginning with awareness. O is own your right to boundaries. U is use clear, direct language, so important. N, notice the response. D, defend your boundary through consequences. A, adjust as needed. R, remember boundaries are a practice. And Y, yield only to yourself because you have agency and you get to change. So beginning with awareness, right? Identify what you need. Before you can set boundaries, you need to know what they are and how to start noticing. So those are physical boundaries. Who can touch you and how, like the toddlers. What physical space is yours? What privacy do you need around your body, your home? Emotional boundaries. What topics are you willing to discuss with and whom? Sarah and I talked about this when we started talking about having the podcast. We talked about what topics are we just not willing to discuss and will not be talked about because we want to protect ourselves because it's too far for us to go. What emotional labor are you willing to provide? If it's an unequal relationship, are you willing to jump through 15, 20 hoops just to get a phone call back? Or are you, time and energy boundaries? How much of your schedule is yours? What commitments drain you versus nourish you? What feels good, what doesn't? And then mental boundaries. And this is a tough one that we've talked about in different episodes. What beliefs and opinions are yours versus what you've been told and those tapes in your head? What decisions are yours to make? And what information do you need to protect, right? Passwords, plans, private thoughts. So the invitation here with this is practice for 1 week. Notice every time you feel resentful, which is huge when you're being taken advantage of, exhausted, anxious, uncomfortable, and you don't have to do anything with them. Just acknowledge that those are feelings that often, not all the time, but often signal that a boundary is needed. So it's just noticing.
Or a boundary exists that's being violated.
Yeah.
So I love this next one. And we're not going to go through all of them in super, super long detail because it would be another hour. But I love this one. Own your right to boundaries. Again, you don't need permission to have boundaries. They are your right as a human being. You don't need to earn the right to protect yourself, to keep yourself safe, to keep yourself sane. So the invitation is to pick an affirmation or two to start. And it's fine if you don't believe it at first. That's kind of the magic of affirmations, is the more you repeat them, especially looking yourself in the eye in the mirror as you say them, the more you repeat them, they settle in and eventually become part of your belief system. So things like, I'm allowed to say no. I'm allowed to change my mind. I deserve relationships where my boundaries are respected. Survivors, we learn that our needs don't matter, that taking care of ourselves is selfish. But those are lies. So these affirmations help to flip those lies on their heads and create beliefs that serve you, not your abuser or people in your life who just want to violate your boundaries.
Use clear, direct language. Boundaries work best when they're specific and stated directly. So avoid, I need you to leave now. Over explaining.
I'm not sure. Mm-hmm.
I have this thing and I'm not sure, but maybe apologizing, which is huge. We could do a whole episode on apologizing for things that we're not even. Oh
my God, right?
Instead, practicing clearest. I'm not available to discuss this topic. That doesn't work for me. I need space. I need space right now. Red flag if the person doesn't let you leave the room. And so just to take this a little step further, like a script template, I need, you put the boundary, and if that doesn't work for you, consequence. So example, I need our conversations to stay respectful. If you can if you raise your voice, I'm going to end the call. So again,
it's clear, it's direct, it's not offensive, it's not abrasive. It's you are stating, this is my boundary, this is what will happen if you violate it. That's it. End of story.
Auntie Brene says clear is kind, whether they see it or not.
Yeah. That's exactly it. And people who want to be in healthy relationships with you respect when you clearly communicate your boundaries, because then they know how to act in ways that won't hurt you.
Because they care not to hurt you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which in itself is kind of mind-blowing as a survivor. You're like, oh, there are people who care enough to not hurt me?
That's a thing.
That's weird.
How does that work?
Right? Okay, so I love this one too. And notice the response, but this is the huge caveat. Don't let it determine the boundary. So when you set a boundary, pay attention to how people respond, right? Because that tells you a lot about them, about how they view your relationship. I understand. Thank you for letting me know. Even if they're disappointed or don't fully understand why you're setting that boundary, they respect it. Some might ask for clarification. So they're still trying to respect your boundary, but they need more information to make sure that they do that appropriately. And then there are the red flag responses, the aggressive response, the anger, the immediate violation of the boundary, or the more subtle manipulation, the guilt trips, the victim playing, the I can't believe you do this to me. Those are the red flags, as I said. So noticing people's responses tells you who is and is not safe. It has nothing to do, it doesn't tell you anything about your boundary, right? Someone's response to your boundary
right.
doesn't determine whether or not that boundary is valid. It is. If it is a boundary you're setting, it is valid.
Right.
What it tells you is who is and is not safe and where you need to enforce the boundary.
I think also it can be hard when someone is asking for more information to clarify. Sometimes that can feel like
that
they're pushing back.
Response.
They're not, like they're not accepting my response. Where truly, to your point, they're just trying to understand so that they cannot do it again. But it can feel initially to a survivor, but it can be confusing. I guess would be the best way. So it's they're trying to honor your boundary. They just need more information. Right. So D, defending your boundary through consequences. Again, a hard one. Back to the toddler example. It's really hard to or even even with children, it's really hard to enforce the boundary, because you miss out on the fun. We're not going to the movie if you don't put on your shoes. Damn it, we're not going to the movie. I wanted to see that movie, right? I was excited. But it's not boundaries without consequences is just a wish. It's just, and again, your abuser is going to see right through it, right? Yeah. So it's they're not punishments. They're, again, what you will do if your boundary is violated. It's what your behavior, so if you continue to call me names, I'm going to end this conversation. Clear, kind. Then the first time they do it, you don't have to necessarily hang up. You could say, I'm going to end this conversation.
Right. That's still reinforcing the boundary. Yeah.
Reinforcing. If you share my private information, I'm going to end this friendship. Big one, but safe and clear and kind. So setting it, but then following through. And that can be so challenging. It can be difficult. It can feel painful in our bodies. But the first time you don't enforce a consequence, you're teaching people that boundaries are negotiable, and that they can just do whatever they want, and they're not important. And again, following through may feel cruel.
It's not.
But it's information that they need, and it's not. It's self-protection, and in your healing journey, you have to protect yourself. Yeah. You get to protect yourself.
You have the agency to protect yourself.
Yes. Yeah.
The last three, I'm going to move through them quickly. Lisa, if you have anything to add on, just cut me off here. But A, adjust as needed. So like we talked about, boundaries they don't stay the same forever. Just like we're allowed to change our boundaries. As you heal, as your circumstances change, as you gain trust in relationships, they might shift, and that's okay. But don't adjust because someone else is pressuring you or making you feel guilty or you're avoiding conflict. Adjust your boundaries from that place of self-awareness and empowerment because you genuinely want to, not because someone else is asking you to. R, as with everything we're talking about, remember that boundaries are a practice. We're going to mess it up. We're going to set a boundary and then not follow through or cave when someone pressures us or apologize for something that isn't ours to apologize for. It's normal. They're a skill, they're a muscle. They take practice to build up. So stay gentle with yourself as you're learning this skill. And why yield only to yourself? So when it comes to your boundaries, the only person you need to answer to is you. No one else, not your family, not your parents, not your siblings, not your friends, not your partner, not your coworkers. Your boundaries are yours. If they feel right to you, if they protect your well-being, your capacity, your values, your sense of safety, your actual safety, then that's all that matters. It doesn't matter if anyone else understands it.
So now to the allies, advocates, family, and friends, like how to support survivors in your life when it comes to boundary. Respect boundaries, even when you don't understand them. You can say something like, I respect your boundary. Thanks for telling me, instead of, wow, that seems really extreme. Are you sure you need that? Don't take boundaries personal. Celebrate boundary setting as growth. That is so, when a survivor sets a boundary, especially when it's hard for them, and it does start out very, very hard, acknowledge it as the brave act that it is.
Yeah, throw that a freaking party. It deserves to be celebrated because that's a huge, huge milestone.
Yeah.
And then model healthy boundaries yourself, right? If you're in a relationship, whatever kind of relationship with a survivor, show them what healthy boundaries look like by also having your own, right? That means you can say no when you need to. You can be honest about where you are on any given day and what your capacity is. You can communicate your limits clearly. So be the example for them by having healthy boundaries yourself and communicating them.
And the last one, and this is hard, understand that at some point, boundaries may include you. There may come a time where they draw a boundary with you, and it might be you overstepping, giving unwanted advice, draining their energy, even with the best intentions. Or, to Sarah's point, you have to have very rigid before you can go out. But don't guilt them. Respect them. And, if appropriate, ask how you can do better. But only if it's appropriate to ask. And then the invitation is, if that is the case, to kind of audit your own reactions, right? Check your advice giving, educate yourself. So I understand that's a heavy one that
is a heavy
that
one.
Could be hard to receive, especially if you love that person.
Right, you're coming from a place of good intention. It can be hard to hear that your actions are actually causing harm. We certainly understand that. It's also part of the human experience, and learning how to react to that in a healthy way that doesn't just double down on the harm, but actually does start to repair and come from a place
right.
of, okay, now I understand more, so I know how to approach this next time. So to conclude, moving from surviving to thriving, because that's the goal here, is to take us to infinity and beyond. Yes, I love the preschoolers. Boundaries are not mean. They're not punishment. They are clear. They are honest. And they're something that we all need.
The other one was, you don't need to be healed enough to have boundaries. Yeah. Boundaries aren't something you achieve when you get so far in your healing journey. They're a tool. They are a tool that you use in your recovery journey. You deserve them right now, exactly as you are, no matter what your circumstance. As Sarah has said multiple times, it is a human right.
Boundaries are how we teach people how to treat us. And it's how we relearn how to treat ourselves, too.
And boundaries can make space for authentic connection. When you're not resentful, exhausted, constantly accommodating, you actually have the capacity and energy for real relationships. And there are people that are, shockingly enough, are able to give you authentic connection and want authentic connection with you. Yes.
Yeah, and also want to protect your boundaries because they care about you and they care about your well-being. And again, especially when you're first coming out of an abusive situation, that can feel completely foreign. That there are people out there who care enough about you to inconvenience themselves to protect your well-being. Mind-blowing.
Shocker.
But it's true.
I feel like that could be our logo. It's just mind blown. Like, boom, boom. As always, as we close, we just invite you to share with us what resonated. Maybe you've realized you've been living in a house with no doors for a really long time. Maybe you identified a boundary you need to set. Share something that's landed for you. We'd love on our community. You'll find us on social media, or just journal. You don't have to be out here, but it is a wonderful gift when you are able to share so that others can learn from you as well.
Absolutely.
And your voice matters here. That's why we're asking the questions, because it matters. You matter.
Yeah, we want to build this community, and that includes having the including you in the conversation, bringing you into the conversation.
Right.
So as always, thank you for joining us today on this important topic of boundaries. And again, we could probably do another. We probably will do another episode on it at some point. Let's be honest.
Let us know.
Yeah,
let us know
if you would like to dive deeper into any of this, or if there are any aspects to boundaries that we missed that you think it's important to talk about. In the meantime, we hope you'll continue to listen, and especially hope that you'll share this episode and any episode with people that you think might benefit from it, whether it's a survivor in your life who's relearning how to set those boundaries, or someone in your life who wants to learn to support survivors more effectively. So you can find all of our contact information in the show notes below, and our virtual doors are open in terms of reaching out to us. We would love to hear from you anytime. And most importantly, stay safe and take care of yourselves and set those boundaries.
Yeah. This May Get Raw, Building Wise Resilience. Until next time, remember,
You've survived the storm, and now it's time to thrive. Keep rising.